So today, guys, we had some pretty cool news. If you guys haven't been paying attention, there has been a few articles that have been going around. And one in particular that really popped out was this one by MP First. That is by Alex from MP First. And he did an interview with Yannick. You guys know he is the creative director. And he asked a lot of really cool questions. So what we're going to do here is we'll talk about everything he answered and literally analyze it. So what we're going to do here is I'll put a link to the full article in the description. So if you guys want to go afterwards, read it, whatever you guys want to do, you guys can do that. Now, the first question they ask is a question that a lot of us asked for a long time. Will we ever see a native PS5, Xbox Series X and S version of The Division 2? And you guys know I've asked this question. A lot of people have always wanted to know the real answer. And for the longest, I thought this was impossible. And what Yannick kind of confirms it here. What Yannick says is that's unlikely because if we really wanted to take full advantage of those systems, since we only have one version of the game that is available on all platforms, taking full advantage of those would mean that the game would no longer be available on old generations. So pretty much if we were to get an update for the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X and S, which are running on the same database as PlayStation, right? That means that the older ones wouldn't work. He says we still have a lot of players that play on all generations and we are not ready to leave them behind and ask them to upgrade. Right now, we are trying to make sure every time we add something, it runs smoothly on old gen as well. So that has always been one of the things for me, guys. I've always felt that for the Division to really have the next evolution of the game, right? To really take advantage of next gen systems, it would have to be a whole new game that offered a ton of things. And we'll talk a little bit near the end of this video, but let's get into the next question. So the next thing they ask is, interestingly enough, a lot of people, including them, thought that Division 2 wouldn't be getting any more content drops, especially after the studio plan for Title Update 12 to be the last major update, and then started re-releasing season reruns in 2021. Then the State of the Game dev streams ending as well, and add that with how Massive is now doing a big Star Wars games. Can you explain what happened and how we are pivoting now to a full year 5 support? Yannick goes off to answer and says, it's crazy when you think about it, huh? That's the beauty of it. It's been quite a real roller coaster because yes, the plan was after update 12 at the end of 2020, the plan was to stop supporting the game because as the question mentions, we started working on Star Wars game. We have an Avatar game. Everybody's very busy at Massive. And the idea is we need people on those projects. It wasn't because the Division 2 was a bad, just we need people on other projects. You know what happened is the game remained successful and probably more successful than we had anticipated after the release of Warlords of New York and the different seasons. So that allowed us to kind of resume the conversation internally of maybe we should keep going. Really, everybody wanted to, but the main challenge was we need the people. The people we had on the project had moved on to other projects, Star Wars and Avatar. We can't just recall them and say, hey, come back to the Division. That was the main challenge for us, was finding a team we could do, and we did that with Ubisoft Bucharest. Since then, it's been a great collaboration between Massive, Ubisoft Bucharest. What we're seeing in year 5 is the real result of that. The time we took to Ubisoft Bucharest for them to learn the engine, learn the game, us learning to work together in a way that we are flexing our muscles and running a live game. We learned a lot with year 4, which was the first real year of content after we started. We resumed production. And I think year 5 is where you're going to see the real results of now we have a full team, but is experienced, but knows how to build things in the Division 2. This is a full year, real full year of content that we're going to be doing on the Division 2. It's really exciting to see where we are today compared to where we could have been. And I'll tell you, I was very shocked with the amount of content that I heard we were getting in year 5. Honestly, I thought we were just going to get some seasons, maybe this new game mode that you're seeing me test right now. But overall, I had no idea the amount of content and things they were bringing for year 5. So it was very shocking and very exciting, and not just for me, for a lot of players who've been following this game for a long time, to see the amount of content that this team, Massive and Ubisoft Bucharest, are putting out for us in year 5. And I can't wait to see everything they have in store for us. Now, they did talk about the state of the game dev streams. They asked if there will be a return to it per year 5. And Yannick definitely dives into it and says this: if you know The Division, I have been part of those streams for a long time. I would love to, but there's a question with the state of the games in terms of how do we keep it relevant on a weekly basis? We struggled with that in the past, and I remember seeing that in the past too. He continues and says, just the shared time it takes to prepare. So it takes a full team dedicated to making that happen. I would love to, but it's ultimately not my decision. That's going to be depending on the people that are running the community and communications. If they want to do that, if they really see a demand for it, maybe then we should look into it. But so far, it's not planned. And I always agree, like, it was very hard. Sometimes they would announce stuff and not really be able to talk about anything because of NDAs and what they're allowed to mention about the new content. And then obviously it would be kind of stagnant, and then they would do like community posts and stuff like that, and people would get very upset. So I feel like the way they're doing it now, how they are showing, okay, one big update, they do a full little stream of it, and hey, we might not get nothing for like another 2 months and then we get something else. I think that's cool. I think that's a better way to do it, because when they do announce something, we're actually getting valuable information versus just them on a weekly basis not telling us much. The next question they get into is they ask about crossplay. We can't not ask this, but will we ever see crossplay make its way over to the Division 2? Yannick answers that would be very hard. Unfortunately, the truth is it's not the way our online infrastructure was built. It was built before crossplay became a reality in this industry, and allowing it would mean rewriting and redoing everything and retroactively touching players' accounts and how they're connected to the game. There's a lot of risk and a lot of heavy work there, and it's very unlikely that this will ever happen. So for any of you guys ever asking that question, it looks like it never will happen. So it shouldn't even be a question that we keep asking. And I've talked about this a long time. I really believe that is another reason why we would need a Division 3, not only for a next-gen Division game, but also because of this main thing right here about crossplay. The next thing they ask is, how will Year 5 Division 2 tie into Heartland? Or will the two just be separate titles that you don't see players bleeding into each other, outside of items you can earn from playing different Division games? Now, Yannick answers, our ambition is, and that is why we are talking about the Division as a franchise. We want people to play whichever game they want. We want people to find whatever experience they want, and if they want to play several games like Heartland and the Division 2, that's great. We are going to make sure that they're rewarded for it. And for us, what matters is that regardless of which Division game you play, you are a Division player to us. And that's really cool to hear him say you are going to be rewarded and you're going to get incentives to connect into one game or the other. We are very connected to the Heartland team because we know Red Storm and we worked together for a very long time. We have a lot of ideas and hopes, some things we could do together. We will be working hand in hand for sure. So looks like Heartland might be something that a lot of you guys want to play, or at least try out if you haven't put that on your radar just yet. The next thing they dive into is the new Descent mode. The question that they ask is, Descent is mentioned as a roguelike mode, which is something I don't see often for shooters. What was the thought process behind offering it as a Year 5 Season 1 content drop? Now, Yannick says, what we wanted with Descent was to give another chance for players to experience a power progression fantasy, which is something that for a lot of our players, they haven't experienced in a very long time, because you get that with the Division, and that's one of the great fondest memories that a lot of players have playing the Division is progressing part from level 1 to 40 and getting the gear and all those things. But for a lot of players, that year has passed and have been maxed level and maxed out on gear since then. They haven't experienced that power progression fantasy. So that was the idea of Descent initially, was to put out a game mode out there that basically takes away their gear, and they're going to have to work towards becoming powerful again within the game mode. Of course, they get everything back when they leave the game mode, which we started writing down the design. It became clear about the roguelike general. The biggest inspiration would come from there, how we would create mechanics that are interesting, because we didn't want it to just be you start with no gear and then you're going to start dropping items and your gray quality, green quality, blue quality basically duplicates what you have in the game. That wouldn't be interesting. We thought what makes it interesting is what if we allow our players to create combinations, gear mechanics in a different way compared to the rest of the game offers. So it's not just about becoming powerful and regrind the same thing. It's allowing players to experiment and play with the mechanics of the game in a way the rest of the game cannot allow them to do. And I honestly think that's one of the coolest things that Descent does offer. And my only gripe with Descent, to be honest, guys, I think it's a fun game mode, but it would just be just the rewards and something that helps benefit our main character outside of the Descent game mode to really entice players to play this for those rewards, the XP or the gear that you can only get in Descent. Then it asks a question that I was very interesting about the end game after season 4. So it says, we know it might be a little bit too early to talk about it, but can you give us a tease at how the Division 2's end game will change in season 4? Now, if you guys haven't been paying attention, they are coming out with a DLC with expanded zones in year 5 of season 4, and they're doing a rework for the seasons called seasons 2.0. So I'm very excited about that. And what Yannick says about this, he says, we are looking at when you play the Division 2 heavy life games, that there's always that moment when you're a player, you start, you learn the game, you learn the ropes, you play the story, and then the end game begins, and that's usually very daunting, and that's suddenly the whole thing opens up and you get lost. The main ambition behind the change, the revamp, is to create an end game that is going to be more welcoming to new players. So doing a better job at introducing new mechanics, introducing new modes and experiences, really trying to give purpose to each one of them. So it's not just I want gear so I can either play Countdown or the main missions, or I can play a manhunt, everything that gives the same rewards. It's trying to find ways so there's a reason why you play this versus that. That's depending on what you're looking for. In terms of cadence and how we are connecting all seasons, you can expect a big overhaul of seasons with season 4 and how seasons are built and how seasons are rewarding players. It's really about general structure of it. How do we come back to the game? What do you do when you come back? What kinds of rewards are you after? And really trying to have something that takes all those pieces, reconnects them in a way that makes it a bit more sense compared to what we have now. And I get that. A lot of people ask me that all the time. Hey, Skills, is it worth coming back to the game right now? Where should I start? And depending on how they do this revamp, this can answer all those questions for them. So I'm excited to see where they go with all of this. The next question they dive into is the Splinter Cell crossover that you might have noticed in the year 5 trailer. They ask, why did it take so long to make a proper Splinter Cell crossover with the game? Aside from Easter eggs, fans have been asking for it quite some time if they aren't mistaken. And Yannick answers with, I don't know why it took so long, but the opportunity we saw there with Descent and the NSA space, and you're going into an NSA research center, we all started thinking about any NSA, and immediately, of course, our thoughts are going with Splinter Cell. That was kind of a fun thing for us to try to do and try to hit at it and to play the reference. That's why you have the color green, these kinds of things in the Descent. From there, we thought, okay, well, a Splinter Cell can also be a fun thing. We've wanted to add Splinter Cell outfit, which we know a lot of people have been wanting for a very long time. I don't know why it took so long. It's more like when we did it, it sounded like a great opportunity to bring in some Splinter Cell elements into the division. So that was kind of cool. So for any of you guys who are big Splinter Cell fans, I bet you're happy. The next question they ask is, with Heartland in testing and seemingly set for release soon, does this mean Division 3 isn't in development, or is Heartland in effect to Division 3? Yannick says Heartland is its own thing and they're working on Heartland. We're working on the Division 2, and that's the focus of each of those teams. So at the moment, he didn't really answer anything for the division, just says they're focused on Division 2, and obviously Red Storm is focused on Heartland. And that was pretty much the entire interview. I think there was like maybe 1 or 2 questions that I didn't add to this video. I think I'll put a link to it. My biggest takeaway from this was the whole thing on Crossplay, and then the whole thing on NexGen Division 2 for like console. My thing, guys, is, to be honest, if we were to get a Division 3, then we would see a next-gen version for PlayStation 5, Xbox Series S, and X. At the moment, they don't want to lose that base, that there's a lot of people who still play on the PlayStation 4 and on the old Xbox. So they don't want to lose any of those players. So for them, continue support on a division that works on all generations is beneficial to them. So that leads to crossplay. Well, we won't get crossplay because of that. The way it's built, it's too much work to change it all. They can risk players losing their accounts because people have accounts on PC, Xbox, PlayStation. I have one on PC. I have one on PlayStation. So how do they go about choosing what account? If you choose the account, do they make sure they don't get rid of the wrong account? How do they link both? Like, there's just so much that can go wrong. And I see that they're concerned right there with, hey, this could cause a huge problem if they mess that up. And I understand why they don't even want to touch that. So my biggest thing is, if we're ever going to see the true power that this could do on an Xbox or a PlayStation, well, there will have to be a new game. Obviously, if you play on PC, you're already seeing the true power, because obviously you can run PCs, you can boost the frames, you can boost everything, and the game actually looks very beautiful on PC. So just my thoughts on that. So it looks like we'll never get cross-play, cross-save, and probably never get a true native Xbox Series XS or PlayStation 5. And that would be for whenever they do decide to make the next version of the Division 3. So at the moment, it looks like they're currently focused on Division 2, which they could still be focused on Division 3, but they're not going to give us any information on that. And Red Storm is solely focused on Heartland. So guys, what we're going to do here is we're going to wrap up the video. Hey, I appreciate the support, appreciate the love. Remember, there's a full link to this article from MP First in the description if you guys want to go there and read it yourself. Let me know what you guys think. I'll see you guys in the next one. Hey, nothing but skills out. Take it easy, everybody.